Hey everyone, new episode, and today is going to be a little bit more straightforward. Yesterday, it broke that Michael was going to be making his return to NIP, and so Ninja for Hire, he's back. He's a freelance ninja, basically. You can bring him in, you can bring him out. Hire him for whenever you need him. And apparently now it's his return from the wilderness. So he's been off, monk-like in the mountains, sitting in the forest, right, sitting on a rock, just meditating, thinking, how do I do the crazy plays again? And Nip felt like he'd spent enough time out there. Michael, it's time to trim your beard. It's time to get your flow back on. It's time to get back into the fight. And so Michael, he's back. He's done sharpening his sword. We're going to stop with the ninja jokes. He's back, and he's going to be playing for a Nip. So, interesting, right? Still a stand-in. Nip have made it clear that they are not removing Pyth from the roster. Pyth right now, he's out with a hand injury. So, we're going to start seeing this a little bit more often, I think, that as the game progresses, as careers progress, and the amount of time that players have to put into the game, we're going to continue to see injuries start to bench players, I think. And so it's just something that teams are going to have to deal with as things go on, unless obviously players continue or at least start to really try and take the physical aspect of things seriously, start to really, protect their hands, the tendons in the back of the wrists. I mean, hell, Olafmeister, it turns out it was like a pectoral problem that he had that led to problems with his wrist. I mean, all of this posture, everything is going to have to be taken into account if we want to avoid or at least minimize the number of players who end up having these kinds of injuries. But that doesn't change the fact that Pyth, he's out right now. And so they ran with Disco Doplin for a little bit, NIP. He was a stand-in. They got him on loan from Epsilon, but as they've made clear in their press release, obviously they're still the Epsilon team that want to play, and so they kind of need their player back eventually. And so after 2 weeks, Disco's out. He's back with Epsilon. Michael is in, and we all get to wonder, what kind of Michael are we going to see? Because it's, we're talking about, almost nearly 2 years ago now. One of the most explosive players in the scene. DreamHack Winter 2014, the major where they nearly took down Envy in the finals. That's what everybody remembers, right, of Michael. That's the Michael. At least, if you're thinking about the highlight, right, the highlight reel, a lot of it is coming from there, from that time period when he was really explosive, when he was just ultra aggressive with the op. He was getting in people's faces. He was looking for duels, just jump shots, all sorts of crazy stuff, right? That was Michael. And then it kind of went south from there for reasons that are still, unclear, it seems. It's just like he doesn't fit into the team. He's a rager. He's all sorts of things. I don't know. Michael was removed from the roster. And, I think the reason was that he was a bit too emotional, and that destabilized some of the roster as well. It was too much going on. Point being, Michael was, after that huge performance, right, he was removed from the roster and kind of cast out into the wild again, right? And so, spends all this time basically bouncing here and there, still had his strong performances, but there was a decline. It started to go down a little bit. It started to struggle. And throughout his time in FaZe, which was the last professional roster that he's been a part of before being fully cast out into the Swedish sub-top wild, we really saw the decline, right? He seemed to be struggling to find that confidence, struggling to find a role that he fit into, what he was supposed to do in the roster, what he was supposed to do in the team. All these things kind of came to a head, and he's just, for the past couple of months now, he's just been out, right? He's been playing with a team called Mix Banan, which actually has a few, Swedish players that we've seen around over the past several years. Roke stands out as one of them. But, they've just been kind of playing in the smaller tournaments, trying to qualify for things. And, it hasn't really been going anywhere. And so with taking all this into account, right, the fact that Michael he's now got a chance, right, to show something here on the main stage once again. That's kind of what I want to look at. Or at least when I'm thinking about this, I just think, okay, how is Michael going to handle this transition, right, and this chance that he's been given? Because again, now he has another chance to really show something. And so I just wanted to take a look at and think of what it is that he's actually getting himself into. Because at the time when he was playing with Nip, it's a totally different Nip from the one that we have today, right? That Nip back then was still the freewheeling kind of Nip that's, just running all over the place, looking for headshots, being aggressive, looking for duels, still had that confidence, that fire. And that, and obviously that changed as things progressed. Michael Ealy left the roster, Alu came on, Natu became coach, and as things progressed, right, we've seen a steady decline with some peaks here and there. Obviously, it hasn't just been at the bottom the entire way. I mean, this year they won on home turf, a big tournament, DreamHack Masters down in Malmo. Nip showed us they might still have it in them to actually win tournaments. It was a big tournament, huge win on home turf in front of the home crowd. And so, I don't think that it's totally done for Nip, but the way that they've approached the game is completely different from the days when Michael Ealy played with them, right? Michael Ealy, if he's coming into this team expecting it to still be that freewheeling kind of style, well, I don't think that anybody can, seeing as how Nip have played with a very structured style now for several months, but he's going to have to try to adapt to that, and adapt to this new Nip that he's going to be a part of, because now this Nip runs a very structured style that's built around the in-game leading of threat. Now, obviously, Nip are going to be trying to change things up during this period as well due to the coach ruling and the fact that we don't know if the coach ruling is going to stand or not. It seems like it's going to stand, and so Nip are going to have to once again start to readjust. They can't have threat calling every round the way that he was over the past several months. But it still needs to be said that it's a very structured system that they're in now. And so when Michael Ealy was playing with them, and the way that Michael Ealy has been playing for quite some time, I think he needs a lot of space, right? I think he needs a lot of freedom to be able to go and look for frags, look for those big plays, try and force them, try to make them happen, right? And, will he have that space in a roster that still functions on the in-game leader? This is the strat, and everybody knows what they're going to do, and it's all very structured up and nice and neat. Can be an advantage, can also be a disadvantage if you get figured out, which I think is what's happened to Nip over the past couple of months. They've been struggling, trying to be less predictable, basically, which means that they have to reinvent themselves constantly. That's the perpetual struggle, the never-ending battle for in-game leaders. How do you reinvent yourself every 3 months, basically, so that you can stay competitive and stay at the top if you're running that structured style? Nip have been trying to figure that out. But for Michael Ealy to truly shine, I think that he did really need that very free kind of system to be able to allow him to just go and hunt for frags and hunt for kills. And so I tried reaching out to the players, but I think they're all in transit right now. I'm not sure what's going on, but I tried to reach out just to see if he's going to be taking over the op role. It seems like that would make the most sense, just to have him stand in, give him the op, let him hold angles, and let him go and hunt. And try and let it play out that way, because Michael Ealy is still competent opper, right? He is a good rifler as well, but I mean, with the AWP, he can really do something. I'm thinking that that's going to be the answer. Allow Forrest to go back to rifling, or basically become that second opper. If they have the money, the economy, they can go for the double op. But otherwise, just kind of let Michael Ealy play the op. I think that's going to be the play here. But in that case, right, the main thing for me, is that Michael Ealy is going to have to come in to a more structured team. He's going to be playing a weapon, I think, that really heavily relies on confidence and knowing what's going on, your ability to if you're going to play a loose style with the AWP, you play that loose style when you're supremely confident in your ability, right? Otherwise, you play a more structured style that's just going to revolve around you holding angles and playing a bit more passive, right? Less confidence, more just, okay, this is my job and I'm going to do it. If you're going to play just the ultra aggressive, that's all about confidence. That's all just knowing that you're the best and you're going to beat whoever it is around that corner, right? If it's another opper, you're going to win that duel. If it's a rifler, you're going to wreck them. It's just, that's how the ultra confident kind of op comes into play. And so what I was thinking about trying to get into Michael Ealy's head, basically, is I wonder if he is going to be able to show us that rock solid core belief in his ability, because there's a lot going on here for him to consider, right? Different team now, different structure for the team now, returning to a team, to stand in, that didn't want him in the past, right? And then also just, he's probably going to be thinking, well, I've been, playing basically with Mix Banan for the past couple of months. I've been streaming. I've been, I've been kind of out there. This is my big chance to show something here against the best teams in the world again, to really show what I'm capable of. I think there's going to be a lot of things going on in his head, in his mind, leading into these matches that we're going to see. No matches yet, but there is the Star Series tournament that's coming up soon, and that's going to be played with Nip in it. So they're going to be competing there. And as far as I know, they're going down to boot camp right now to prepare for that LAN. And so there's going to be a lot going on with Michael Ealy right now, and all eyes are going to be on him, obviously, as well, because all the Nip fans are probably the Nip fans who've been around for a while. They're probably thinking, oh my God, yes, this is the return to that Nip of old. Michael Ealy's back into the roster. He's going to show that explosive style again. He's going to go and just completely destroy things and manhandle everybody. And, at the same time, I'm thinking, or I'm wondering, is he thinking the same thing, right? Is he coming back into it saying, right, I was capable of doing this in the past. There should be no reason why I can't do it again. But he needs to figure out how to insulate himself from all of the other elements that come into it, and just the pressure that's going to be on him to show something. And is he going to, taking that pressure into account, is he going to be able to fit into this whatever system that Threat is going to want to use him for? Because, if Michael is thinking, I need to get a lot of flashy plays, a lot of kills, to really show, hey, Michael is back and I'm going to win these games and all that, it can't all come down to him, because if you're playing in a tight system like that, there's less room for individual movement. There's much more about, cohesive playing in a team sort of thing, which gives you less room for, the individual standout crazy stuff, right? Which, right, goes contrary to perhaps what Michael is thinking about when he comes into this. And so there's a real complex thing going on here with Michael coming back into NIP. And all eyes, I think, are going to be on him. Obviously with Nip and the other players, and if there's a revitalization there with the other players, with him coming back into it to see, right, does Get Right, start fragging all crazy again. This Forrest, who's been fairly, stable, is he going to be able to, kind of hit that next rung? Is this going to be some huge performance coming out of Nip, or are there going to be too many factors at play that will basically get in the way of that happening, in the way of crazy Nip coming back into it to just start dominating? I think there's a lot of moving parts here, so it's going to be fascinating to see. But right now, I'm just thinking, Michael, just focus on whatever system that Threat wants to put you into, and just trust in that. Don't fall into the trap of thinking I have to shine like the brightest supernova star, right, in the galaxy, right? Like, just focus on excelling at the job that Threat sets up for you, and then really that'll show. I think that'll show that you've made progress on this during this time where you've been out in the wild and not really had much to show. So interesting times. Next week is going to be sick with that LAN, and so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how he performs there with NIP and how NIP as a whole perform, and also to see if Threat is still involved as much, or have they kind of come into some 50-50 role between him and Exist. I mean, it's going to be real fascinating to see how this team in particular, like Na'Vi, right, two teams that heavily rely on the coach to be the in-game leader, how they're both going to perform given the changes. So good times. But there we go. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.